Welcome back to Kind of Funny's Game of Thrones, the final season in review. I'm Tim Gettys. This is Andy Cortez. That's Kevin Coelho over there. We got Nick Scarpino, and joining us once again, the keeper of plot, the explainer of scenes, Andrea Renee.
What's good, everybody?
How you guys doing?
Well, who's talking? I can't see you. It's too dark.
It's too dark. It's too dark.
There's too much banding on your face. It's too dark.
Oh my gosh.
Before we even get into the episode, I want to have a Gary Whitta moment for a second and go on a rant. HBO needs to step its shit up. We've been talking about it this whole season about how there's compression issues and this and that, and they've been a minor annoyance, but it was at the point that this is affecting the show. This made the episode worse because you couldn't see what's going on. Sure, for production reasons, it was dark and they were trying to hide a lot of things. But instead of hiding things, we see just color banding, pixelization.
Yeah, so I don't think it was necessarily that it was so dark, although that was an issue with some of the indoor stuff, especially when Arya was sneaking around I guess they have a library, where the fuck the main hall was, wherever the sorting hat is kept in Winterfell. But what was an issue was that I think they were with this, we are not seeing anything in the background, so we need to add layers of fog up front, and that whatever that fog was just was not great. And like Andy nailed it. I was literally looking at 3 bands of gray the entire time they were outside.
The entire time. And it's even in scenes that weren't that, when the dragons fly up, it just looks like they're in a sky of colors, because instead of it being black, the compression is just horrible.
Those flying scenes were rough.
Although there was a couple moments where they broke through, where we saw stunning shots of the dragons just looking at each other.
I can't wait to see it in 4K HDR eventually. This is why HDR matters, this exact episode. And it just sucks that HBO can't get their shit together.
But I mean,
because I paid double. I'm paying for HBO Go and for Amazon, and it still looks this fucking shitty.
Yeah. But the thing is this, I don't think that HDR is going to help, because I think that this was purposely done to mask a lot of the effects and stuff.
It's going to help.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know that it's going to make it look better, though, because I think you're going to see a lot of the flaws in the image now.
Dude,
if it's crisper.
I've seen so many things now in HDR versus non-HDR. This is a problem of HDR. That will solve so much of this. This was shot on the Arri Alexa. We know that the data is there.
I just wonder if, I would love to talk to their post-production supervisor and be like,
I'm sure they're fucking
what
furious.
Did you do that? I don't know if they're furious, or if they're if they looked at the image and was like, this doesn't look good enough, we need to add a bunch of shit to this.
I really don't think that's the case.
The problem is that it's not that it looks bad because they made it, they put too much on it. It's just HBO's streaming services are absolute trash.
It did such a disservice to this. I guarantee the directors and post-production, everyone's looking at this it's not our fault, guys. This fucking sucks. But anyway,
it will be cool to see that.
Just go ahead and render it out at 4 times the amount next time. Get some better servers.
Maybe they couldn't push that much. Maybe they couldn't push that much bandwidth because it was an hour and 700 minutes long.
So getting into it, it is Game of Thrones, the final season, episode 3, Battle of Winterfell, first aired April 28th, 2019. Directed by Miguel Sapochnik, who's the same person that did The Gift, Hard Home, Battle of the Bastards, The Winds of Winter. Some of, if not the best episodes of the show ever made, all the big battle episodes, and written by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, who are the show's creators and main directors, have also written over half of the episodes of the show total.
Just want to note that the official title for the episode was The Long Night.
The Long Night was the name of it. I just Googled it, and Google proved me an idiot. You know what I mean?
That's why I don't Google stuff. Just guess.
In a runtime of 1 hour and 22 minutes. A brisk 1 hour and 22 minutes. I've never been more bored by a battle scene in my goddamn life.
I wasn't.
Oh, thank you so much for saying it, Tim. I've been holding it in. It was such a disappointment. Just out the gate, I was like, really? You're going to do the Dothraki like that? Wow.
I think that was the best moment of the entire thing.
That was a cool moment, except for, hold on, the most important person out there, Jorah's coming back. It's
the guy that was in the front, the guy that was leading the whole thing
exactly.
was like, fuck, we fucked up.
Yeah.
I do love that moment.
Haters,
I like when they came back, there was 2 horses, and then another Dothraki, and then Jorah, and he was like, no words, just turn around.
We'll get to that scene, don't worry.
Its biggest problem is that, in the first 20 minutes,
you want one?
And there's a cool little buildup of oh shit, it's about to go down.
That one shot was beautiful.
It was awesome. And then they start attacking, and it's they're fucked. And then it's just an hour of people that can't fight against these guys somehow holding on, and it just doesn't seem believable.
Armor, baby.
Plot armor.
That episode should have been called Plot Armor.
All right, so the first scene of The Long Night begins with a lot of the first 10 minutes really, or this big setup, this anticipation, this
and I thought
fear.
this stuff was great.
Yeah, fear running through some atmosphere
how
building.
long was it?
Hour and 22.
I would argue that the first hour and 21 minutes were set up.
Okay, that's a hot take. So we've got a little bit of everybody in this opening scene. We've got Samwell and Tyrion and Bran with Lady Karstark and Theon, Sansa, Brienne and Pod, and then we go to quick tight shots between Grey Worm, Tormund, Beric. So I have a cough drop in my mouth. If you're like, what is she chewing on?
Why is she eating breakfast?
No, it's a cough drop to keep me from coughing the whole show. Gendry, Eddie, and Samwell. And then we get a shot of Jorah and Ghost. Why is Ghost hanging out with fucking Jorah?
It makes no fucking
But also,
sense.
why did we not see Ghost the rest of the
Because I
episode?
guess he died. He ran out in the beginning of the battle and then never
he does
came
not
back.
die. There's a shot of him at the
Yeah.
end.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You're right.
Here's my thing
You're right.
about this episode as a whole is we went into this battle. We've seen amazing battles. This guy's directed amazing battles with the most amount of cool toys and cool things they could have used. And I feel we got a third of them.
We didn't get
maybe.
the wall thing.
We didn't get the fucking wall thing.
wall
we didn't
thing.
We
get
saw,
Blade
we
Hand.
saw it several
We didn't get Blade
times
Hands.
on
Yeah.
the wall, but they
Yeah.
never released it.
Nobody released
We
it.
had dragons. Oh, what are
Yeah.
fucking Jon and Daenerys doing for half the episode?
Good
Flying around in
in
like
a blizzard, I
Well,
guess.
they
so.
couldn't
If you
see
remember,
either.
if you remember, the plan wasn't to beat the army. The plan was to kill the Night King. So it was very much catch the golden snitch and end the game early. Like
yeah, but
that
I
was
feel
the,
like
that was
very,
the idea.
Very quickly, they're like, "Oh fuck, we need to burn the army," and they start attacking.
Well, they did
like,
at first,
army.
and then I think they saw that they realized the Night King was out there on the dragon, and they have a moment where they look at each other and go, "Cool, that's the goal."
Right.
And then he smartly was like, "I'm just gonna bring in some fog, and now
Yeah.
you're fucked. I have outfought you. You're dumb," proving once again that everyone in the Starks and in the North are tactically inept when it
Dude.
comes to
Well,
all this shit.
Before that moment even
He
happens,
controls
though,
the weather, though. I mean, like
we
that's-
get to see.
Didn't know you could do
Who
that.
knew that he could do that?
I mean, we
It was
we
fucking
all
Storm
do.
from the X-Men.
We see what I think is one of the real MVPs of this episode show up. So as they're panning across all these different people preparing for this battle to commence, we see Sir
Staring
Davos
into the darkness of the void.
on the top of the battlement looking out, seeing a lone rider approaching the armies. Of course, that lone rider, Melisandre, the Red Woman, coming back. We all knew that she was going to make an appearance of this season at some point. Glad that she came when she did. So
Because it was dark, and she brought us
She
light.
brought light,
Yeah.
and it was like, "Oh, thank God, we're gonna be
Exactly.
able to see some stuff."
yeah, she approaches Jorah. Jorah, rightfully so, is like wary of her, why she's approaching at this moment. And she's like, tell the Dothraki to lift their swords, and then she lights them all ablaze. It was a really cool moment.
Freaking awesome.
Really cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
And used in a really cool way of being like, man, this is a menacing threat that just killed all of the Dothraki.
No, I
Except for
and I
Jorah.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that you made a joke when this started, like the Dothraki can go out like that. What a great, terrifying moment where they ride. We can go.
Yeah, no. So
But-
she says. So she has a moment with Jorah after she lights them all on fire. They say open the gates and let Melisandre in. Of course, Sir Davos is ready with his sword
He about
because
to
he
kill
had
her.
promised he would execute her if she ever showed her face again, right? And then she says, "No need to execute me. I'll be dead before the dawn." Which of course is foreshadowing, in a really weird way, because the way she dies is not what I expected it to be.
Not at all.
But then the battle begins, and I have in my notes the Dothraki poofs out, like there's just like someone snuffed a candle.
I love that shot because you get them riding off, and then you see the wide shot from like Jon and Daenerys' perspective of the army separating and the spear of fire going into the void of darkness, and then you see it from what Grey Worm's perspective. Is that his name?
I think it's. I think it was Jamie and Brienne. You see in the
Yeah, you see it from someone's perspective where it's just all the fire going into the void, and then one by one,
Beautiful.
just going out,
So
and you stop
beautiful.
hearing the screams. That's
Yeah.
the most terrifying thing.
Beautiful, and also like I got angry about it the second time I watched
Absolutely.
it.
Oh, no,
Because
no, it's beautiful,
These are
but it
arguably,
makes
like
no
Kevin said,
damn
the best
sense.
fighters here, right?
Why would you send them
but
into
that's
the
why
void?
it's terrifying. They're dead. The Unsullied are gone now too, right?
Yeah, but then why are there some
most of
random
them, except
horses
Grey
running
Worm.
back, and they don't explain how Jorah just magically escapes when he's running with the
no, but
Vanguard?
we get one shot of the guys looking this way, and then as it starts to illuminate like what's in front of them, he looks up and it's the giant, and then it cuts away from that. It was terrifying. They're
Yeah.
just like, oh, there's a one moment of oh shit, like what do we just get ourselves
Yeah.
into, and then dead. I love
I
it.
saw a great tweet that was like, did anybody tell the Dothraki what they were fighting?
No, we didn't.
like,
It just, I mean, it felt that way in Worlds though.
Yeah.
Like, and that
Yeah.
is not, that's bad writing. This episode reminded me of like some of the worst parts of season 7, where it was just like everyone made fun of them when they went beyond the wall, and we're all just there for way too long fighting. It's like, this seems unbelievable, but at least it's cool.
Yeah.
This is just like some of the worst strategy I've just ever seen.
Well, I mean, I don't know old school like battle strategy, but like it makes sense to send your forward guard out if they can see what the fuck they're about to fight. But in this, I'm like, why would you just send them randomly into darkness? Why wouldn't you just, because they have the catapults behind them. So the idea is you're always supposed to, I guess you're supposed to send the horse-mounted cavalry forward as they're catapulting over so that it can cause chaos. But you'd also think like maybe you're going to hit some of your troops with it if you don't know what the fuck you're firing at or where you're going. This seems dumb.
It just
Also, cavalry should be used probably to flank as well. So send them around and drive them into the people. I don't know. It's crazy. Again, I have no fucking idea what I'm talking
General
about.
Nick Scarpino.
Like, tactically, I never want to risk game in my life.
The Battle of the Bastards showed that they can have strategies and stuff be communicated to the audience and then shown that they're doing the thing and you believe in it. And then when characters are in trouble and there has to be an outside force to help, when that outside force comes in, you're like, this makes sense.
Yeah, it feels earned.
Yeah, so I was upset about that whole scene. I didn't like it. But then they cut away to
their favorite move, the cutaway.
Well, I mean, first off, the wall of ice, which becomes this like pervasive like blizzard-like conditions over the battle, it gets sent out, and then we cut to Danny and John up on the ridge with the dragons.
The wall of compression.
And Daenerys, like, rightly so, after seeing her entire Khalasar just like poofed out of existence, is like, I'm going down to help because her Unsullied army is the next in line, right, to get rolled over by the army of the dead. And this is when John's like, we are waiting for the Night King isn't here yet. Like, where are you going? And she's like, kind of like, fuck you. I'm taking my dragon and we're going to go light some shit on fire.
There was that moment where they have the sort of overhead shot showing all of the armies that are there. And I had a thought to myself like, oh, there's a lot more. We might pull this through. There's a lot more people.
got this.
Yeah. We have a lot more than I thought there was.
But you also get to see just how widespread the army of the dead is and just how massive it is.
Yeah.
As they're coming like this massive wall, almost like a tsunami of like dead soldiers.
Very World War Z.
Yeah. Exactly.
Where they're just running very fast at each other and climbing over each other and not afraid to make a wall or a bridge out of each other.
But once they hit the actual wall, I feel like they were like, hey guys, we got them on the ropes. Let's slow down. Let's only send one at a time through these little things. It's
it was interesting. So after seeing what happened to the Dothraki, Arya turns to Sansa and says, you must go to the crypt. You have to get the fuck out of here. Like, you don't know how to fight anybody. We need to have one of us survive. And then she hands Sansa a dragon glass dagger, and Sansa's like, I don't know how to use this. And then classic line from Arya, stick them with the pointy end.
Fuck yeah.
Which was awesome.
Also, maybe another tactical error. If you are battling someone who can raise the dead, don't hide in a crypt.
I mean,
maybe.
That's why all last episode they're like, the crypt's safe. It's like, no, it's not.
But I mean,
I didn't think about it.
No one,
I
no
guess
one important
it
dies.
was. Totally fucking
Because
was.
we have a lot of setup with Tyrion. Like, we have drilled it into your head that Tyrion cannot fight. He is fucking useless. And then she hands him the dagger, and you're like, it's his moment to shine. He's going to save someone. It's going to be great.
Cut
and
away.
he just hides. I feel like they wanted to do a lot more with this episode and just weren't able to pull it off. And it sucks because they spent a lot of time with the battle outside and not enough time with the characters that I think they didn't give the characters great moments.
No.
With the exception of Arya, who I think her and the Red Witch I think stole a show this episode. I think it was their episode.
Samuel died like 14 times.
Samuel didn't die. At one point they just cut to him.
They all died
You don't
like
have anything
12
else for you to
times,
do. You're
dude.
just laying down on a pile of fucking bodies, just stabbing them.
You
Like,
should have just taken a nap.
Oh my God.
I would have done the classic hide under the bodies and just relax.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have been a bad strategy, but all right, so let's keep moving here. So we get a lot of cutaways with Theon and Bran where like nothing happens until the very end. So I'm just going to briefly go over this. They're basically like tensely looking at each other. That's about it.
Apparently, also that's where all the archers were because instead of having archers with dragon glass like shooting into the
They
thing,
had archers on the wall,
They're
too.
like 4 archers. I would have
Oh
been
my
like, where's
gosh.
the battalion of archers like destroying these people from
Well,
an
they
elevated
needed to
position?
protect Bran. He was like, he
Why?
was the number one guy to protect.
I get it
Because
because
he's
the
a
history.
three-eyed
Man,
raven.
that's literally the only reason they won. So they needed to protect him.
Yes.
fair.
Exactly.
Also, really quick, we did get that moment where Bran is like, "All right, I'll see you later, dude. I'm gonna go on a journey."
Oh, and something
he
cool's
goes
gonna happen.
into the birds.
Something cool's gonna happen.
and then that was it.
Nothing happened.
Yeah, it was like, all right, well,
What a bizarre choice.
Yeah.
Like, do you think we're going to get something in the next 3 episodes that explains what Bran was
Don't
doing?
answer that question. We'll hold it for the end because that's something we
Okay.
should absolutely discuss. But we have a lot more to go through before we get there.
Also, let me just give advice to to these armies, right? In hopes that they're listening for this final battle that's going to come up at the end of the season,
The
at the end of the
last war.
series. well, I guess it wouldn't work for these normal armies, but like for these walkers, I have another I thought of blade hands, right? I thought of
Blade hands, great.
shooting.
See that.
I thought of shooting blade hands with a catapult into the crowd, but also I was thinking like have a bunch of horses with just one like giant fucking plank of wood or something. Like
I
maybe
don't know if
3
that's
horses.
how horses work.
Giant plank of wood in the front
In
of
the
them.
middle.
Yeah, like
a really wide carriage.
it's in front of them, yeah, and it just has spikes.
You know what
right?
they
And you
need?
just run forward.
You know what they really need is they need the carriages from Gladiator with the spikes on the side of the wheels.
Yeah.
So when they go by
yeah,
people,
that
it cuts
would be
people's
pretty
heads
good.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I really feel like immediately they should have been like, oh shit, let's cut down all the trees and just layer and layer of like burning trench, and we'll set it all off. And then let's
Also,
see them get past that.
Terrible planning with the whole. We're in winter, it's cold, and we only have one way to light these goddamn trenches, which is the
And
dragon.
it's the dragons.
That's it. It's a
Well,
bad idea.
I mean, they obviously improvised. So let me go back to where we were at here because I don't want this to devolve into chaos. So we get back to the battle after seeing Theon with Bran and in the God's Wood, and we get the first death of the episode where they're in the thick of the fighting, and you've got Samwell who has no business being out in the fight, getting overwhelmed by whites, and then Eddie comes to his rescue. And in that moment, Eddie then gets stabbed through the chest and is the first death of the Battle of Winterfell.
Guess his watch has ended.
No, he comes
Are
back.
you trying to be cheeky?
Yeah.
No, dude, it was rough because Eddie's made it through a lot of shit, man.
Yeah,
we
but I
knew he
feel
was
like,
gonna die.
he was
we
one
all
of the
knew he was
most
gonna die. Yeah, we all predicted it. So
yeah, he was one of the most easiest okay,
Kill
he's
him off.
dead, and it's like, oh look, it's this important moment.
Him and Cyclops. I was
nah.
like, these guys aren't lasting through this episode.
yeah.
Cyclops.
And then we get the first scene with Danny and John in the sky in this blizzard. They spent a lot of time flying around in this blizzard where they kind of run into each other
Crash
in the
into
middle
each
of
other.
They
the
were looking for the
sky.
Night
Finally,
King.
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Dragons trying to fuck.
They
trying
knew
to
he
fuck.
was coming.
It'd be cool if Bran had gotten figured out the Night King's over here, and then gone to them and been little birds. And be like, follow me.
Yeah.
They're just
Follow
like,
me.
there's
And
like
then just
winter.
like-
They just sort of- or he
Yeah,
just spells
something.
out, follow me with birds.
just give us something.
I agree. It would have been fun
Useful.
for Bran to partake
Do
a little bit
anything,
more
really.
there for
They
sure.
gave Bran anything to do.
After what's his face falls off his dragon, Jon Snow, it would be really cool if Brandon jumped in there and started helping.
Yeah.
Taking out
With
some
the
of these
crows.
whites.
Or if he had warged into ghost or something. So,
Or something.
So clearly
Literally anything.
the ground forces are in free fall, and Grey Worm, who's commanding the Unsullied army, who are really in the thick of it, is realizing that we need to do a full retreat. And so they echo retreat, retreat, retreat across all of the troops. And they start to pull back into the castle. And the Unsullied are there to protect the retreat. And this is a really interesting moment, I think, for Grey Worm particularly, because we have always known the Unsullied to be these fearless warriors who feel no pain. Down to the first time when we met the Unsullied, where their master literally cut a nipple off one of the guys to demonstrate that they feel no pain. They show no pain or fear, and there was straight up fear in Grey Worm's eyes in this episode.
Well, I
of him,
think you also get that he's looking at his troops and realizing that they're dead.
well, they're his brothers,
Like
right?
they're gone.
Since they've been freed, they've developed this camaraderie. They're no longer just these faceless soldiers; they're people.
Did
I
they
thought this
not
was
start retreating?
No, they were.
did.
I know that they were
They
protecting the retreat.
They started slowly, which I thought was really cool. They have a moment where
Yeah.
they start calling it out, and they one by one step back.
Yeah.
So they're stepping back and falling back, and I'm sure some of them did. But the idea was that they were parting ways as
Yeah.
people came. The
Right.
front guard came back and to retreat, and obviously, the idea was that they were going to all funnel back in. But if you remember, Grey Worm at one point realizes that they're fucked, and pulls the drawbridge, and it pops
That's
up,
right.
leaving literally maybe 2,000 of his people in front of him, and he stays out there too. And you're like, oh, he's dead. And then you see him
Well,
later
he
in the
stays
castle.
on
He's
the,
like,
the
oh my
right
God,
side of
Yeah,
the
he's on
drawbridge.
the other side.
yeah, but he has I think he had a lot of great moments in this, especially the one that's coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have here that
I mean,
about the retreat.
he had cool moments when there was the scene where he's fighting and just taking people down. It's like, oh, this is awesome. And then he gets overwhelmed, and it cuts away, and then I guess.
But
it's
I
fine.
thought it was really sad. I thought he played it great. That actor, I don't know the actor's name, but I love when he's looking out and he just has to. He comes to you see it. It's very subtle, but he comes to the realization that he's like, shit, I got to pull the bridge. My guys
Yeah.
are fucked, but I got to do this, and he just does it. He calls the fleet order, and everyone in front of him is just dead. They're gone because they can't get over it now.
Yeah.
And now they want to light it on fire.
I think it's super impactful because of that and how far the Unsullied have come with Daenerys and everything that they've been through, and the decision that really falls on his shoulders as the commander to make that call. But then, the Unsullied that are left on the other side make the call to bring Melisandre out to the trench because Daenerys can't see the signal from Davos to come and light the trench. The archers aren't lighting the trench. Even the guys with the torches who are running out are getting overwhelmed by the whites. And so they're like, can Melisandre make her magic happen again? And so they form a protective barrier around
cool.
her to bring her out to the trench. And like, what an amazing pyrotechnic moment to get that entire trench around Winterfell to light up.
The tension was so high in that moment because she couldn't get it up right away, and it was just.
Well,
that was a nice
performance issues.
Yeah, she did. Well, I think she did a great job too, because she's always she's only had very rare moments of where her confidence has faltered in this entire series. She's always like, "This is what's happening. The Lord of Light has told me what's going on." But she has a moment where she's praying and she's focusing, and then her concentration gets broken because they're just overwhelming the guards next to her, and then she has to refocus on it, and then it breaks again, and then she finally focuses on it and lights up that thing. That was really, really cool. And I also thought, I was like, oh, she's going to die. This is the moment where they kill her. No. This ain't it.
No.
No, they were able to successfully retreat back into the castle. So now this is where we cut to the crypt, and this is the first big scene we get of everybody that's down in the crypt.
But also, Red Woman, maybe just fucking jog out there. Give us a little hustle, right?
Oh yeah, she kind of just walked out.
Walking out here. Show me some hustle, Doc.
Let's go.
You know what I'm saying?
She was never in AYSO soccer. Let's put it that way.
I'm with you there. So we have Sansa, Tyrion, and Varys who are down in the crypt, and Missandei is kind of off to the side. So they're having a moment where Sansa and Tyrion are kind of reflecting on everything, and they talk about, maybe we should have stayed married, and she's like, it would never have worked, and
you were the best of them.
She said, yeah, you were the best of them. And it was interesting because when John and I were watching it, he thought she meant you were the best of the husbands that she's had, and I thought she meant you were the best of the Lannisters.
I think it was meant to be both.
I thought it was husbands.
I thought it was husbands because she'd had.
I didn't think Lannisters.
Joffrey, what's his name? Littlefinger.
No,
Littlefinger was never betrothed to him, so she
Ramsay.
had
Ramsay, that's what it was.
Yeah, and Tyrion.
I think it was meant to be a weird double thing.
Yeah.
Because definitely I got the Lannister thing as well. I really liked this scene, just looking at it as its own thing, not necessarily in the whole episode.
Doesn't it get then spoiled by Missandei being like, well, then Washukar wouldn't be around, right?
Yeah, it does.
Like, why
I'm with you. Like in my second watch through, I thought it was petty of her to say that because they're clearly having a moment of levity in the face of their imminent death, where she's like, hey, we had a connection. And then they make this joke about, oh, it never would have worked. Your divided loyalties, to the Dragon Queen. And then Missandei stands up and is like, well, without the Dragon Queen, you'd be dead already, so you wouldn't have any problems, I guess, would you?
To which I would have replied, hey, day ain't over yet, right?
Anything could happen.
We might be fucking dead.
But I do also think that Missandei is
stressed.
Call her by her fucking name.
Yeah.
Because I think her saying, oh, well, fucking Dragon Queen over here. I think that's kind of like a slight, just call her by her name, dude.
It's like us calling him Game Over Grady. It's like, no, we're being assholes when we do that.
But I get tensions are high and everybody's stressed out and upset. So it was an interesting moment between them. And so then we cut back to Theon and Bran, where they actually have their first conversation, where Theon, of course, wants to get this incredible guilt off of his chest to Bran, being like, I just want you to know. And Bran kind of stops and is like, listen, I know what you're going to say. Everything you did has led you to this moment, to where you're supposed to be in your home. And I think that really meant a lot to Theon to have that kind of closure, forgiveness, redemption.
All the things.
Theon's been on kind of this redemption track the entire series. And I think that he's atoned for what he did. Was it terrible and bad?
Burned some kids alive. I think he's got to die.
He killed everyone in the castle.
Yeah, he's a
everyone
piece of shit.
that was in the
Burned
castle.
the kids alive, did he? I thought he killed them and then burned their bodies out.
Does that make it?
Does it make it better? No. It's still fucking
Semantic
bad.
argument. No, but I do love this because he apologizes. He's like, I'm really sorry for the things I've done. And he's like, there's no, everything you've done brought you here and you're right where you're supposed to be, which is
What do you have to say, Barrett?
which I thought was really
He
good.
claimed to burn the smallest Stark alive, but he knew that the bones were somebody else's. He knew that the two youngest Stark boys lived. And that was season 1 or 2 or something like that.
Yeah. Remember, he has that great speech where he's like, where you're all going to fight. And then someone just hits him over the head.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't like you, dude.
Yeah.
You suck.
And
They
then
all
this
got
is
skinned alive. Those guys that were with him.
Oh, great.
Ramsay fucked them all.
Yeah.
up.
Ramsay's
Flayed
the
man.
worst.
And then he killed everyone in the castle.
Great.
Well, we're not going to dedicate any of the show to Ramsay. He is dead and gone.
Although I did watch The Dirt again over the weekend, and he's in it as Mick Mars. Fantastic.
Why did you watch it again?
Because my wife hadn't seen it. I was like, let's watch it again. It's fun. It's a good movie.
So anyway, Bran he says, "I'm going to go now," and this is when he starts to warg into the Ravens.
I'm going to go now. You little shit.
Yeah, this was like super disappointing. Like him warging into the Ravens and then flying into the storm, and then we never see those
We have
Ravens
Ghost
again.
on the battlefield. We have all of our fan favorite warrior characters. We have 3 dragons. One of them's an ice dragon. And you go into some birds and don't really do anything.
You know what it's like? It's like you're at an industry party and you're talking to someone you don't want to talk to, and you're like, I gotta go to the bathroom real quick. But you don't have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, he just didn't want to talk to
leave. He just
Theon.
didn't want to talk to Theon anymore.
He's like, Dan, I don't really
gotta
have
go,
much
man."
to say to you, dude.
He just wargs, and Theon's, it's a beat, and Theon's like, you're still here.
Yeah,
aren't you?
like-
you're just making your eyes go.
So like, what are your plans after this, man? Like, I gotta go, bro. Like,
You guys trying to get some food after this? It was I gotta work, bro. I gotta go.
warg, dude.
I gotta work out. I'm working out.
But after this moment is when we finally get to see the Night King on top of Viserion in the sky, because we hadn't yet seen the Night King in the battle, confirming that no, he did not fly to King's Landing.
Cool reveal. I mean, like, seeing him there was shocking to me, at least. I thought, like, for sure, having not seen him that long in the episode, I'm like, oh, he ain't here. Seeing him there, I'm like, oh shit, this changes everything. But then, yeah.
But then I have in my notes in capitals, why aren't they fighting? Because if this is like the battle and it's begun, why wouldn't the Night King like bring Viserion down there? And I think after reflection on it, he clearly knows that Daenerys and Jon are out there with the other 2 dragons, and he's just biding his time. Because like the warriors down in the field mean nothing to him.
Yeah,
right?
he
They're
doesn't-
just
he's
dead
not in a
soldiers.
rush.
Yeah.
But why bide your time? Like you're on this dragon, you can just land there, burn everyone, and it's not like dragon fire is gonna kill you. They prove that later. So just like, why not just go and end this?
Get the dude.
well,
Yeah.
that's been the whole series. Like, why are they just walking? Like, why can't they run? They're not humans. They
they
get
can run.
tired.
Yeah, but I think the idea is like their fate is inevitable, and he doesn't need to rush it because he's like, I know I'm going to beat you.
Up till the last moment,
It's like
when
every,
he's just walking.
it's like every villain in the movies where they turn the corner, they walk after
Yeah.
you. It's like,
Or why they detail their plan for 30 minutes to the person that's being held captive instead of
Yeah.
just killing the
I
captive.
just feel like out of all the people in all of Game of Thrones, he's the only one that actually has some sort of plan, and he's stuck to it. He was like, I'm gonna bring in the fog. It's gonna get confused. I'm gonna wait until we wear every single person that could possibly defend Bran down into the castle. Then I'm gonna fucking bring my dudes in who are here, the fucking ring wraiths or whatever they have behind them. We're gonna come in. We're just gonna walk in like bosses, and no one's gonna be able to talk to us about it.
But I mean, if that was the plan, then just wait even longer.
Well, he did.
Because inevitably, if he just chilled
But here was his plan.
for long enough,
A,
everyone would be dead.
Wear everything down. B, the second everyone was pretty much dead and your army was almost destroyed, guess what? Snap your fingers, bring everyone that was on the other team back, and then you've dominated and you've surrounded the castle and you just walk in like you want. I think it was a great plan. And it totally would have worked too if it wasn't for those kids.
those darn kids.
Or that darn kid.
So this is when we see the army breaching the fire trench. Oh, maybe this is my note about why aren't they fighting. So we see this standoff, right? It
great.
reminded me a lot of that scene where the band of guys was on the island on the frozen lake, and all
they
of
just
the
stay
White
there.
Walkers were on the other side, and the Whites, and they were just waiting them out essentially. So we see the army on the other side of the fire trench just standing there staring out. And in my mind I'm like, yo dog, what happened to those catapults that you were firing just like one round of? Like, why aren't you like throwing Molotovs into their...
Why don't they have grenades
Right?
or like
Or
not
archers.
grenades,
Why don't
but
they
you know
have
what I mean?
archers?
Like,
Rocket fucking launchers.
Well, I get that. We got
Molotov
that.
cocktail is something they could definitely
Exactly.
have.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Well, we saw that it was cold, and we saw that fire is having a hard time. Like when it hits, it doesn't
Yeah.
light things on fire. So I believe that. But there is a moment where they're just staring at him like, "Cool, just had to take a break." And you're like, "Why are there not archers with tar and shit? Like, do they not understand siege warfare?"
And I know that
They're
they
in
get
a
there
fucking
eventually,
castle.
but y'all have dragons.
Yeah, burn them all
But
out.
at this point, they're still lost in the storm, right? That's the
You
idea.
stupid ass dragons.
Yeah.
You have one job.
Yeah.
Burn things. Don't get lost.
I think the catapults
Lot of
were
smoke, Tim.
outside of the wooden
Yeah, the catapults
rings.
are gone.
Yeah, so they were
The catapults have already been overtaken
Yeah.
at this point, but the archers on the wall should have been able to do something.
It's
Okay.
Which they kind of were, but they weren't.
But it's weird that they definitely, for sure, take a break because at one point, like when they start doing the bridge over the fire, they're like, "Hey, everybody, man your position." It's like,
Yeah.
why the fuck were you manning your position a minute
they're
ago?
not going to stop. We didn't stop them.
Yeah.
They're there. I can see them. I'm looking at that guy right there. He's
Also,
like,
they're
"You're
not
dead."
fucking moving.
I'm coming
Just
for
get
you,
a
bro.
long stick and like put it through the fire and then poke them.
Yeah, I know. That is the one thing that they failed to do in this was to bottleneck and poke. I feel like that would have been a real good strategy.
It's too many people.
Nobody had spears
but
except for the unsullied.
They showed them fucking World War Z and like.
Oh, that was intense. No, this next part where because it's very subtle. They're standing there for a second, and then one dude lumbers out and just drops into the fire. Then another dude.
no, it was the
Then
Night King
another
who
dude.
like fucking
he, like-
do that shit.
Yeah,
That
no,
was
he had
awesome.
like put his hand out and was just like move forward, right? And so that's when they made like they literally made like a ramp of bodies
Yeah.
to
That's
get over
cool.
the over the
cool.
trench. And this is where John finally sees the Night King. So John and Rhaegal had landed on the edge of the wall of Winterfell after he saw the trench's light. He was able to make his way back towards the castle, and so that he sees him atop Viserion, and that's when John's like, okay, this is my moment. And then this is when we cut back to everybody manning the walls. We've got Jaime and Brienne fighting together. We've got Beric trying to convince the Hound to like get back out into the fight because the Hound is now feeling defeated. He makes a
Straight
statement
up
to
having
him
a
like,
panic attack. Which
Well,
was
yeah,
pretty
because
cool.
he's scared of fire.
Yeah.
well, he's not only just scared of fire. I think he saw the wall of
There's
whites like
zombies,
running
yeah.
at them and was like, "This is
Yeah.
hopeless. What are we even doing? I want to
Yeah.
lay down and die." And then we see Arya with her badass spear just like killing
yeah.
whites left and right.
Also, like these fucking whites jumping down, like they're breaking their legs.
they
dude.
got no fall
You
damage.
kidding me? They're not like they have no meniscus or like ACLs. They're
It's
just
magic, Andy.
They're crumbling
It's
when
magic.
they land.
They're
Bro.
for sure
at
going to
point
feel
of-
that when they're 80.
Yeah, but they crumble and they immediately get back up because
Yeah.
them just breaking their legs isn't going to kill them.
We've seen
Torn ACL
just
after the
bones
season.
running around.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And then we have one of the most epic scenes and tragic scenes in the battle. So they cut to the front of Winterfell where the giant White Walker has now broken through the front, and the first person he sees, of course, is Lyanna Mormont, little Lyanna. Knocks her to the side, and
Just bitch slaps her. It was like
Really- yeah.
such a
That-
Ridiculous.
shitty
I thought
move.
she was dead in that moment.
In the
too.
head.
yeah. There's a brief cutaway where Beric points to Arya up on the roof to the Hound, and the Hound sees her in danger and then runs to go help her, and then Beric follows him.
No, that's
And then
that's a great moment. Though. What's the guy with the one eye?
Beric.
Beric
Yeah.
Dondarrion.
When he looks, he's like, "What's the point?" And he goes, "Tell it to her."
Yeah.
And they point up at Arya, and she's still wrecking shit and like running around. And that's the point that snaps him out of it.
Yeah,
which is
and then
nice.
she is like ducking into the hallway to try to escape this like
Yeah.
giant stream of whites that's after her. Then we cut back to Lyanna, who has stood back up, grabs her axe, and just lets out this battle cry that's amazing and just charges at this giant. And I'm just like holding my face like, no.
Yeah.
And then
He just
he
grabs
reaches
her.
down. He grabs her and then like
Breaks
crunches
her
her.
ribs. Yeah.
And it's like you can hear like her armor and everything crunch, and then pulls her up, and then she pulls the dragonglass dagger out and stabs him in the eye.
It was so good. And this scene is what I wanted this whole episode to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And it wasn't. But they
No.
did this perfectly.
Yeah.
So good. The little girl taking down the giant. Lovely.
It was really great context if you watch the dive into the episode with the showrunners afterwards, where they talk about the actress and the girl who plays Lyanna, and they're like, she was supposed to have a single scene in the whole
crazy.
series, but they said based
She
off how
became a
well
favorite.
she performed, they're like, we can't not keep using her. She's great. The fans love her, and so they wrote her into subsequent seasons and episodes. And they said for such a small character who had such a powerful impact, we had to make sure that if we're going to kill her, that it has to be impactful as well.
And shout out to that because the initial slap away, I was like, oh, that's their way of getting away with like violence against a child, right? Like they're not going to show her get stabbed to death because that's like way too
crushed
much.
and eaten.
But yeah, I'm glad that she like redeemed that.
when
It
he
was awesome.
started pulling her up, did anyone
Yeah, I
get
was
Attack
like, oh
on
my
Titan
God.
vibes?
Oh, yeah.
Where he's
Yeah.
like,
He's about to munch
I
her,
was like,
dude.
no, he's gonna eat her. He's gonna bite her off.
Thankfully,
Before we
she did
keep
not.
going, I want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Back to the Plot.
All right, so I got 3 more pages of notes, so we kind of got to move through these. So the next scene that we get to is this beautiful moment where Rhaegal and Drogon take Dany and Jon up above the cloud layer.
Yeah, I love that.
And
It's
so cool.
It
Really
was
cool looking.
It felt like a '90s poster.
It looked
right?
like Aladdin.
Yeah.
You know, it reminded me
Yeah.
of Aladdin when the carpet goes up above the clouds. So
Yeah,
cool.
it was really cool. And then the dragon fight begins, and then they kind of start to go after the Night King, and they're making an offensive move, which I was glad to finally
Very
see
stressful.
happen.
He pops out from underneath and like just starts burning.
Yeah.
Rhaegal,
He's
right?
just so
Right.
much
No.
better than them.
The
at
claws,
everything.
the
Drogon.
claws digging into the skin, and then the moment where Viserion is like biting at Jon Snow. Like in my room, I'm audibly going, "Oh, like, no," because those bites were getting so
Yeah.
close, man. Oh my god.
Yeah, and like they don't have like a harness or a saddle. They're like just like holding
just
on with
on
their
it, man.
hands.
Seems like such a bad idea. I can't believe that they haven't made a saddle. Like that doesn't seem.
Gendry, get on it, man.
Henry, come on.
Exactly. So we go from this really epic dragon fight to this really quiet moment that it feels really tense and atmospheric with Arya inside the castle. She's escaped this group of whites and is like ducked into Winterfell. A reminder to everybody watching that this is her home. She knows these hallways. She knows exactly where everything is. So she's tiptoeing through this library where the Sorting Hat is kept.
Such a total
Yeah.
change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very abrupt, kind of out of nowhere.
I really enjoyed this whole sequence, but in comparison to the chaos that was going on, I know that they did this for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I still thought like, why is it so peaceful and calm in here? Like,
Yeah.
like there should
It's so chill.
we can't hear anything.
Well, the entire scene was built up to make the end feel validated. Where
Yeah,
it's like,
which-
okay, she's the queen of the sneak. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's like
Right.
she's so sneaky that she's so quiet when she moves that her blood falling is even
But
louder than
that's
her
the thing that
movements.
pissed me off about this scene, because you have a ton of other whites moving around in the space. She's being very stealthy, very quiet. She even employs the traditional stealth game tactic of throwing the distraction.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, John and I were like, throw the rock or whatever, right? It was really funny of her throwing the book. So the idea that the whites would hear a few drops of
Yeah,
blood
bullshit.
over the sound of
So
all of them moving
silly.
around was absolutely unnecessary, and
dragging
a
swords
suspension of
around.
disbelief
Yeah.
that was a bridge too far.
It was
also-
to build up the end. And like I totally agree, it's not good. But like
Yeah.
they had to have some type of explanation for spoilers for later. How does she sneak through this?
I don't think they needed to explain that though.
I
I,
mean,
think it was like we know that she's a silent assassin,
Yeah, but like
right?
that's such bullshit. It was
Yeah.
surrounded.
Yeah.
We'll get to it in a minute, but I just think it's so crazy that they could hear the blood drops, but yet are they not making hella noise just walking,
They are.
stumbling
Yeah,
around?
that was
It's
my
just
point,
Like,
yeah.
it's
The
so-
guy was dragging the sword on the ground. Like,
So,
Yeah.
like, how do they know what noise is from who?
yeah, exactly. Magic. The reason why they don't break when they fall down, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Magic.
Same reason why their fucking meniscus and their Achilles tendons don't tear.
So she was
Kevin, be
able to
nice.
successfully sneak out of that room, quietly and gingerly shut the door behind her, and then the door right next to her breaks through a whole new army of whites. So then the whites in the library they've now funneled into this one hallway, and there's this really fantastic chase sequence where she's running through these incredibly dark hallways.
I loved it. And this was one of the few scenes in the episode that I
Bless you.
actually felt concern over characters
Yeah.
because I feel like the episode taught us that anytime someone looks like they're in danger, they're not, so it's okay. But with Arya, I was just like, I don't necessarily think she's gonna die here, but like she looks fucked up.
She's got this head
bleeding from
wound
the head,
happening, yeah.
and like there's real fear from her that we should have seen a lot more of, I think, in this episode. But it reminded me of Jon in Battle of the Bastards, where you really start to fear for him when he's just getting kind of overcome
Overwhelmed,
by
yeah.
bodies.
Oh, I hated that.
And it was just like
was
there's
so
real
claustrophobic.
Did you
scare,
bring like
real
a 2
fear.
liter?
I
over
brought
here?
Andy's 2 liter.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's already almost over. Wow. It's already almost done.
over.
But before we get to that sort of chaotic scene that I really enjoyed in that stealth scene, the turning around and immediately
that was
stabbing.
awesome.
That was really cool.
Like,
Yeah.
cause that
really dope.
Yeah. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
All I could think was like, ew, there's so much blood on you
yeah.
now.
There's like
So gross.
because it was like boo.
That discharge.
I was like, oh, come
Don't
on.
say discharge, Andy.
Was it a viscous discharge, Andy? Yeah, it was viscous.
It was gross. I think we can all agree on that. So they cut away from that, the hallway chase, into the crypt where it's silent and people are tense, and then you hear these people at the top screaming, open the door, open the door. You can hear the whites attacking and everyone kind of like looking around being like, oh shit, the fight is here. And then of course smartly they don't open the door. They're like, sorry bros.
Everybody just like puts in their headphones.
You guys want to take a vote? No, I think we're okay.
And then we cut back to Arya, where of course the Hound and Barrack have now broken in to help Arya escape from this this pack of whites, and then no surprise, Barrack gets stabbed, and then is like he does this epic move where he throws the flaming sword to get the white off of Arya so she can keep running.
Yeah.
And I think we know that this is the end for him.
Absolutely.
In this moment.
He gets stabbed so many times.
A million
No
times.
resurrections
Horrible stabs too.
More
But,
than more
keeps
than
going.
Jorah somehow.
Yeah. But he
It's
keeps
almost
going.
like a Hodor moment, right?
Yeah,
Where-
there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he kind of. I couldn't tell if he was doing it on purpose or not, but it looked at one point that he
Jesus.
was trying to hold them back.
He was
Yeah.
definitely
As they
doing
were
the
stabbing
cross
him.
thing. Yeah.
Which I was
Yeah.
like, damn.
But then
baller.
he made it into the
Yeah, he
final
still
room.
made it.
Which
Probably
was
could've just
dumb.
run.
Yeah,
That was
so
so
dumb. I wish he had just died in the first stabbing.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
weird choice.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they brought him all
So
the
they
way.
could
I
give
think-
him the moment of like,
Well, they remember because he goes into the room and the Red Witch is there, and then we have the great setup for
Right.
her reminding Arya like what her job really is.
Right, so
Which
Mol-
she says, this guy's dead. No one's here to bring him back. He did his job.
Right.
And then they have a great back and forth.
She says the Lord brought him back for a purpose, and that purpose has been served.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big reveal there, right? That the idea that the reason why Thoros was able to bring him back so many times is that his purpose had not been served, and his purpose
Right.
was to get Arya alive to
Alive.
that
Keep
moment.
her alive. Yeah.
And then he did, and he rescued her. And then they have this moment between Melisandre and
So good.
and
So
Arya,
good.
where Arya looks at her and is like, "I know you," and she's like, "You do. We've met before."
Where
it
did
was
they
back in
meet?
season. It was back in season 3 when they first met
Yeah.
she took Gendry.
Back when she was with
Yes.
Gendry, and Arya was mad at her for taking
for
Gendry.
taking
Right.
Gendry, right? Because remember, she got really pissed at Barrack and Thoros for selling Gendry to the Red
And
Witch,
then Arya's
right?
like, two can play that game. I'm going to take Gendry too.
Yeah.
Bam, 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 bam,
And so she had said to her at the time, "You're gonna shut many eyes forever: brown eyes, green eyes, and blue eyes."
Pauses on Blue Eyes and Blue Eyes. Like, hey.
And I
The White
didn't-
Walkers have blue
and
eyes.
I didn't pick it up the first time I watched
really?
it. Well, I didn't pick it up the White Walker moment.
Yeah.
I just picked up like, oh, there's all these people with these different colored eyes. I'm also thinking of the Lannisters
Me
and how
too.
she
Yeah,
still
yeah,
has
yeah.
yet to kill.
Which might
Well,
be as
Cersei
well.
has green eyes, so.
Well, yes,
You know
but
what I
not
mean?
all of them do, right?
Yeah. Now I'm pretty sure Tommen had blue eyes.
But Cersei has green eyes, you know
Right.
what I mean?
Yes. But
Well, she ran the gambit of
Then-
eyes that.
Also,
people
did they
can-
hold that scene a little long?
No.
When she's like, blue eyes.
no, I think they do that to make it impactful, right? And so when I went back and watched it, it had a little bit more weight the second time because I was able to like fully focus on it. And then she uses the line from Sirio in season 1. What do we say to the god of death? Because that's what her
today,
her
motherfucker.
dancing lessons instructor says to her right before his death, helping her escape back in King's Landing. And she, of course, says, "Not today."
So
Yeah.
And then
fucking
exits.
love it.
But I love this because prior to this, we'd seen her try to be a warrior. We saw her trying to stand up to the White Walkers. And this was like a reminder of like, hey, that's not who you are in this. You're not trained to do this. You're trained as an assassin. You're trained as a person who's supposed to be like surreptitiously in the shadows and then come out and strike one time, not millions of times. And I love that there's a look on her face where she's like, fuck, you're right. Why am I out there on the front line? I should be hiding in a fucking tree, waiting to do the one strike versus trying to be the dog, you know, or the hound rather.
I love the idea of from there, she immediately ran and went and hid in the tree. And it just, the little buildup of the Night King walking over with the idea of she's in the tree, just like
Fucking waiting for a
fucking
moment.
cold.
come on, bitch. Come on.
How long
bitch,
do you
come
think?
on.
How long do you think Kevin could have been in that tree before he just like fucking
Oh,
and just
I
falls?
could be in the tree for hours, days.
so?
I'm a good tree climber. Tim, back me up here.
Yeah, but you
He's good
hear
at
it, you'd be like
climbing
this. Was that a giggle? Is the
You
tree
gotta,
giggling?
you gotta watch Barry, dude. Tree climbing at its best.
right.
Also, do you think as soon as she
Climbing
left
at its
out of the room, that like fucking the hound was like, so is she Azor Ahai? And like Melisandre was like, oh, I mean that shit up.
Yeah, I don't know.
They 100% just made that up.
They never talk about Azor Ahai outright in this episode, which I think is
Yeah.
an opportunity missed.
Yeah, me too.
Is it
And my
though?
thing about what you were saying about like the Thoros plan is like, oh, he did what he needed to do, which is
Yeah.
keep Arya alive. It's like that's so specific.
Well, the whole point of her was that she was trying to figure out who the person was going to be to stop the White Walkers, right? To kill the Night King. So, and this is the problem. She has a lot of moving pieces, and Kevin and I talked about this. Was like, I think the idea was that it was supposed to be everything that built to that moment where she stabs the Night King. Everything else doesn't really matter beyond that, because he was talking about like what's the character Zora? What is it?
Azor Ahai.
Azor Ahai.
Which is the one that was supposed to be Stannis,
Since that was promised.
and now it's
And
Jon.
it's
The
Jon.
Prince that was promised is a showrunner thing because in the books, Azor Ahai is gender neutral.
So, so again, I think that could be interpreted a number of ways, but I still do think that Jon is one of the most is the integral part of bringing all this together to end this war. So, depending on how macro or micro you want to look at that prophecy.
I think this does confirm that like the prophets don't mean shit. Like that's
Which
just
is like
motivating.
such a fucking disappointment.
But it's
right?
not- it does, because it
that's
works.
cool because it really like so much of the show has been like what matters is what the people believe, and like if that motivated them all to get to this point, like cool. It's great that now it's confirmed that there is no Azor
But
Ahai.
I don't know how you can have this prophecy and say it means nothing, but then you have the magic of the Lord of Light on full display
But, like,
in this
that's the
The
battle.
midichlorians, Andrea.
No. Like there is no magic of Lord of Light. I think it's just that like if you believe that you have the magic, you can make things happen. Like when
Anybody can be a Jedi.
See, I didn't interpret it that way. I interpreted it as she doesn't necessarily know the exact linear path, but as long as she's still putting these pieces in play,
She's said
the
as much,
outcome
yeah.
is the most important thing, and the outcome is exactly she did what she was supposed to do, which is why at the end she goes, "Cool, I'm done."
Yeah,
There could be only one Highlander.
it's true. Let's continue on, shall we? There's so much more to go. So we get another cutaway to Theon. So the fighting has now begun in the Godswood. We don't really see much here. Just a couple of whites starting to make their way into where they have this circle around Bran while he's warging. And then we cut away to a really epic conclusion to this dragon fight that's happening. So we've got Viserion now with the Night King atop him, going straight at the wall using his like ice fire or whatever we're calling his blue
So
breath
burning blue.
Fire.
to
Burn
break
blue,
a
baby.
hole
Burn blue.
in the wall of Winterfell to really kind of cripple the defenses there, and me being like, what took him so long to do this for?
Yeah, maybe start that.
And then Jon and Rhaegal attack him right away as this happens, and then they're having like this battle back and forth. It's this really epic like thing that's going on, and then out of nowhere comes Daenerys with Drogon, and they knock the Night King off of Viserion, and also the look on his face as he's just like slow falling to the
like,
ground,
damn,
He's
no
like-
expression
Like,
whatsoever.
damn, good play, man. GG's, dude, GG's.
I think he's just like, yeah, no, I'm gonna hit the ground and then get up and keep going because they don't have any fall damage.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. But this fucking bitch ass spear that he's had, like,
Yeah.
like get
that
all
thing
right,
down.
fucking.
Hey man, at least he missed, you know?
Yeah.
Because when he goes to throw it and it's like, oh shit, are they
Well,
gonna
and then
take out one of
Daenerys
the
knows,
dragons?
right? She gets the hell out of there right away
Yeah.
as soon as she sees him start to raise the spear.
But
right?
that's what I fucking hated. Like, if he has one spear and he missed, and you still just fly away, it's like, come back, circle back around.
She did.
it wouldn't have helped. I mean, yeah, no,
No,
she did.
he could have. Dude, what do you mean? The dragon could have just pounced on him. And
But,
then
like-
John just walks up and like, "Psh, it's over.
Moments later,
hold
she
it down
like
for a
shoots
second.
him with fire, and it does nothing.
No, I'm
Like,
talking
that's-
about, no, that's after the fire.
Yeah, no. I think we're getting like so. Here,
Yeah,
what,
we're getting-
what
yeah,
happens
it's all mixed up.
is the Rhaegal crashes. So as when Drogon knocks the Night King off, then Rhaegal crashes because they have now, with the Night King falling after Drogon has crashed into Viserion. Both of the dragons fall, and then we see Rhaegal kind of like skid
Rhaegal's,
across
like,
the
fucked
ground.
up. He's, like,
Jon
hurt.
has fallen off,
But
right?
Is Rhaegal dead? We
No.
don't know.
We actually don't have a confirmation.
We
We do in the final on the next on.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
he is
But
alive.
we're not supposed to talk about that.
Right, but like we can in our
We're
death
confirming the
death
deaths.
list,
Yeah.
he's not dead.
Yeah. Those are
the
he's
rules.
confirmed alive.
You're nailing it, Nick. I'm proud of you.
So then we get the Night King. So there's this moment where we cut to the ground, where Jon has now gotten back up, kind of dusted himself off, and is like shaken, and he's like, he knows that the Night King is on the ground. He's like, I must go find him. Goes to run after him, and they had this locked eyes moment. And then Jon's like, oh, fuck. So the Night King does his move where he raises
cool.
his hands and lifts all of the dead Dothraki, all of the dead Unsullied.
But
that
this is
are on
all
the-
after the Dracarys
Yeah, this is
moment.
after the moment where she goes, mission
Oh, yes, I have
accomplished.
Dracarys here.
And the fire starts going down. You're
So
like,
after
no,
John
that
falls
didn't work.
off is when she circles around
Good call,
and then
Nick.
Yeah.
and has
Yeah.
the Dracarys moment. And then I have
But that's what I'm saying,
it
she-
did nothing! Exclamation point! Exclamation
But
point!
and then he
exclamation
throws the
point.
spear, and she's like, "Fuck, I gotta peace out,"
gotta
and she
bang.
dodges
I
it.
gotta bang, bang.
And
But she
then
still goes back
she-
around.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah,
she
but
does, 'cause
like,
she's
oh,
safe.
he missed.
Dragons
Fuck,
don't
he only
spin on a dime.
He only had one spear. He missed. Cool. Let me go back,
But I
pounce
think
on
she
him.
knows what the stakes are if he doesn't miss the second time, right? She sees Viserion and the damage that he's doing, and she can't risk Drogon being turned dead, right?
He doesn't have another spear.
He's just on the ground with no
Yeah, but she
spears.
doesn't know he only has one spear. Maybe
But
he
like
can. Maybe he can frozen it and make
That's
another
true.
spear. The guy can control
Magic,
weather like
dude.
Storm.
Like
Magic,
the girl from
dude.
You don't know what the hell's going on.
Magic.
But this
Forget
is a great
everything you
scene
know.
where John
Yeah.
starts running after him, and then stupidly slows down. And then the Night King turns around, and John he looks at him and immediately gets it. He's like, "Fuck! I forgot he could do this." And then hands
Awesome.
start getting raised.
I really love-
And
I
that
really
was a
like
moment where I
this.
was like, I was not expecting that because they were owning them so hard that I'm like, oh, they're winning already. Why I need more? But yeah, just to take everyone you've just fought next to and raise them up, including the little girl.
Leanna
Oh my
and
god.
Ed both came back as
which is
whites.
great.
Fuck.
That goes back to what I was saying earlier, where it's like you have so many cool tools at play for the choreography of this, and then it's over
Yeah.
instantly.
And he gets mobbed, and it sucks. And then Daenerys
Cut
comes
away.
back, right?
Right.
But then the dragon starts getting mobbed, and she
Oh
got
my-
a
that
battle.
was
I
That
was like,
was a
oh
hard
shit,
That was
is the
terrifying.
dragon fucked? Because
Yeah.
there's all these whites just stabbing it dozens of times, and instead Daenerys just gets knocked off, and the dragon, I guess, shakes it off.
Dragon
a
should
little
just
bit.
rolled
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Before we got to that scene, though, there was a pivotal scene in the crypt that happened where
right.
once the Night King is raising the dead up again, the dead Starks in the crypt are coming back to life as predicted by virtually
Everyone,
everybody.
I did not see that coming. I'm such an
How?
idiot.
We talked about it.
I didn't. I was just like, oh, that's genius. You think maybe if you were there, you'd like bolt him in a little bit harder, just stab him in
The thing I got
some
so
holes in the
mad
ground,
about,
stab.
I was like, how did not a single one of them run forward to the first white and stab him with the dragon glass?
Because I don't think
There's
they even
not that
had
many
dragon
whites
glass.
down there.
That was
right?
another tactical error on their part. Why would you not arm everyone in the crypt if that's like your last like vest or bastion of hope? At least give them all a dagger. Why not? We had one dagger in there. And it was,
Two, technically. There might have been more,
Like, there's a
but we know
buttload
that
of glass on
Tyrion
these
and Sansa
walls.
both had one.
You know, take some glass off. Go ahead and grab a piece. Like,
I mean, the fact that like
breathe on it.
Tyrion didn't immediately go to try to stop them, like pissed me off.
This
It
was-
made
yeah.
me very
really
mad.
weak
dumb.
moment for him because it was like, all right, well, yeah, you should be waiting down here to die because like you're not. You were
It
arguing for
sounds-
so long that you should have been up there
Yeah.
trying to be helpful, and then you weren't helpful down here.
I was
I
expecting.
thought it
him-
was a poor showrunner writing choice. I really did because they set him up to be the guy who wants to fight. He talked to even Varys again about like we should be up there. We have strategy. Look what I did at with the Mudgate at the Blackwater Bay. And the fact that they made him like whimper in the corner like pissed me
With
right off.
Sansa.
Well,
Like,
not only
I'm
that,
so
but,
mad
but
about
that
it.
was, but yeah, they set up the fact that Sansa's like, I can't fight either, and I was expecting a moment where she was going to realize that she could take a knife and stab someone too. Like I was expecting her to have at least one moment of warriorness, and she didn't.
Well,
she
yeah,
just
they
ended up
have-
being like, I'm just going to wear this weird necklace the entire time. That, by the way, someone could easily grab and choke me out with.
They have that moment where they're
Just a
both,
goddamn metal
I
noose around her
doubt
neck.
that's what the whites are trying to do. Like, oh, Nicholas, let me choke you out.
they have that moment where they're both hiding and they're leaning together, they're having this serious talk, and they're kind of like, yeah, we're gonna go do something. It kind of feels like, okay, they're gonna go out there and
Yeah,
fight.
no, fuck
and
some
then
shit
they
up.
cut away.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay.
Well, no, when we go
Yeah,
when we
they-
come back to him, he's like, let's hide together.
Yeah. So they cut away. We get another very brief scene of Theon continuing to hold the whites off of Bran, but it's getting dire. They're running low on arrows.
It's got a Hawkeye moment.
Yeah. Then
Oh, no.
then we cut back to Daenerys saving Jon, and then of course Drogon getting overrun by all of the whites on the ground. I mean, it was a really impressive visual effect seeing
Yeah.
these White Walkers just
I hated
like
it.
World War Z
Yeah, it
onto
freaked
the
me out.
dragon,
I don't
right?
like it.
So I the whole time I just kept screaming, take off, fly away.
Yeah.
And thankfully he did eventually. And of
Drogon
course,
was getting
as he's doing
stabbed.
this like dog shake
Yeah, dude.
to like get all of them off, of course Daenerys falls off as well. And I'm like, she's screwed.
It was a cool moment because I actually was like, oh, we've never seen her have to do shit.
No.
Right.
You know what I mean? Without like the protection of a million armies and dragons
Right.
and warriors and all this shit. But it's like her being there. It's like, oh shit, she has a sword.
She's on
she needs
herself.
to.
Well, she
needs
didn't
to
get a sword yet. She was by herself. And was like,
Until-
oh shit.
Until Jorah storms to her rescue, which where the fuck was he this whole time? He like
chilling.
magically survived the Vanguard
Dothraki
assault on the
thing.
Dothraki.
He's just creeping on
He
her wherever
comes
she
back,
was, like-
says nothing as he rides back on his horse. Just has this like horrified gaunt look on his face.
I mean,
And then
the
re-
alternative
and
would
then
have been like,
reappears
"Hey, we're all
here.
fucked, run!"
I don't want to worry anyone, but we're fucked. Like we're dead.
Right. So he comes here, and of course he's there fighting to protect his queen. And there's like the implication here is like obviously very heavy, and he's always wanted to fight for her and give his life to save her. And
He gets
and,
to.
and he does, not in this moment, but and then we cut to Jon fighting his way to Bran because Daenerys had come in with Drogon, cleared the White Walkers in front of him with fire, and then
Because he's like, but he yells at her. He's like, Bran, and she's like, go. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're 18 miles away from this kid right now. You're not going to get there in time, bro.
Yeah.
Like maybe think of a different plan. Maybe call the dragon back and catch a
feels
ride.
like he runs in a big circle. We'll get there in a second.
There's a lot of.
So
yeah.
I have on his way to find Bran. He of course re-enters the Winterfell grounds, and we see check-ins with certain people. We see Sam and Brienne
Where they're just fucked,
fighting
right?
Against the
and
wall.
Grey Worm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how they're alive. They probably shouldn't be.
Plot armor,
yeah.
man.
It was-
This is
yeah,
this episode at
plot
its
armor.
worst.
Yeah.
And then there's a moment where he looks at Sam and like Sam's kind of getting overwhelmed, and he like you kind of see in
crying.
his face like I should go help, but I need to handle
I need
this.
to handle
it's
this
more
thing.
Yeah.
important. And then he continues to walk and just kind of look at run and look at everyone, and we get the slow mo, and it's just like.
Yeah, this
how
is
disappointing.
where I think it really starts to fall apart, and like the plot armor becomes way too thick because we have this moment, as you're saying, Kevin, where he's recognizing in himself, I need to do the right thing by abandoning my comrades to go protect Bran, because that's ultimately what we said was like our like number one priority objective here in this battle. But then he throws it all out the window in a few scenes later. But before we get to that, we cut once again
I
back
thought
to
we had another ad
Theon.
read.
I was like,
Once
no, we
again,
didn't.
back to Theon, who is now out of arrows, and the people all around him, the soldiers are falling. They're getting overwhelmed by the whites, but we don't know what's going to happen yet because they cut away yet again to Sansa hiding with Tyrion in the crypt, and this is where they have this kind of sweet moment where they're like looking at each other. They hold each other's hands, kind of do this like hand squeeze, and then they both pull out their daggers and are like, because they can hear all these people, these women and children screaming as their bitch asses are hiding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you two are probably some of the strongest people in that room, and you're hiding when there's like little kids
Really
there.
scary.
There's a dude
moment.
without
It
a
was
dick,
so
and he ain't hiding.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's trying to fight some people too. Has no dick, literally.
That's how he was scaring everybody. Like, check it out. Like,
So they pull out their
Ball them top,
daggers like
ball
they're
them on.
actually gonna go,
my God.
find their strength and go do something. And
I'm
then
a Ken doll.
and then we cut back to Viserion.
Why is he still going?
I hate you so much.
All right, just keep going. You're doing.
I'm taking your
doing great,
microphone
Andrew.
away.
You're doing great.
Andrew,
And so-
you're doing a great job.
And so we cut back to Viserion attacking the front of the castle. The troops not knowing how to combat this dragon who's breathing this crazy blue fire breath.
It's coming out of the goddamn
His
side. That was
neck
another
and
great,
shit too. That was
cool looking
intense.
thing.
And then this is when we get this like when the music slows down.
Ugh.
We start to get this really sad like piano music, and like this is when you know like shit's about to go down, right? We're at the very end of the episode here.
And I remember the use of music in the finale of season 6 when the sept explodes.
Oh, yes.
That is probably my favorite stretch of scene in the entire series, and it's because the music is so beautiful and sets up and is paced so well.
Mm-hmm.
This just felt like an attempt at hype epic moments,
Right.
And the fact that we didn't get much from it, I was like, wow,
it was-
this
I
really
agree.
feels like there's a dissonance between what I'm hearing and supposed to be feeling and what you're showing me.
Wasn't as impactful as that moment.
it was
in my
impactful
opinion.
as hell for me. But again, not as close to any of the other episodes. I still think it did I think it did a good job.
Do you think it was not impactful for you because John somehow was like superhero, like dodging every fucking flame and like just every like split second dodging death every 5 seconds before that?
When the
I was like,
when
what
the
the fuck
whites
is he
were
doing?
falling through the ceiling, that shit was like intense for me. That reminded me of like Mission Impossible, walking to the prison. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like when everybody's falling at him and he's like, it's
Much better series.
It reminded me a lot of Battle of the Bastards, where it's just when Benioff and Weiss talked about the end of Battle of the Bastards, where they're like, so much of this is just luck. So much of staying alive is luck. Where like, just because you're a captain doesn't mean that you're like, not gonna die or whatever.
Right.
And like, so much of this was luck, where people are falling, and he's just like running through this chaos. I thought it was like very disorienting. I thought it was awesome.
I thought that they did a good job of setting it up. This is the payoff I was waiting for. I was like, okay, this is where everybody dies. They're getting overwhelmed. They've just risen all of these people from the dead. Like, this is where like the payoff is going to happen for the stakes of this massive army coming in. Because so far, we've only had like a couple people die, and there's like
Super unimportant people.
100,000 dead soldiers out here, right? And so we get a cut to Danny and Jorah just taking stab after stab after stab. We know now that Jorah's dead, right?
But I also like that in that Danny is like, I got to do something, and reaches out and finds a sword of dragon glass and starts stabbing, like starts fighting too.
Right.
It's just like, we're on our last leg here. I got to go out swinging.
Yeah, we get the cut to Theon and Bran, where Theon is like using the actual bow to knock down enemies because he's out of arrows. We get the cut to Podrick, Jaime, and Brienne, all kind of their backs up against a wall, just like brutally trying to keep the whites from overwhelming them. And then we get the cut back to where Bran has finally now back into his body.
He's
we
like,
see the whites.
I'm back. What'd I miss?
We see the whites circling the gods would. They're this like litter of bodies in front of Theon, and then the generals have walked in and kind of parted for the Night King to do his like slow stroll up to where Bran is. And so Bran's now back in his body, and he turns to Theon. And Theon's just looking at him, knowing that it's fucking over, right? And Bran recognizes like this despair and says to Theon, "You're a good man. Thank you." Yeah. And it was just like, hit you right in the feels, man.
Yeah, that was a good moment, yeah.
I'm like,
for sure.
Cool, thanks, man. Where the fuck have you been? Where'd you go?
Where'd you go?
Would you get a fucking Carl's Jr.? What happened?
Watching Avengers.
No, but I mean, I think that this is a fair criticism, right? Like the fact that Bran has been warging the whole episode. We saw him in the crows at the very beginning when he starts to warg, and then we see nothing from him the rest of the episode that he's just warging.
It might be important for later.
It might.
Hopefully.
He could have just been surveillance. Like, he could have just been...
But he's not communicating with anyone,
Yeah,
so
it
there's
was,
no point of having surveillance
just for his own little
if you're
personal-
not relaying information. You know what I mean?
but I mean, it could have just been hopeless. Maybe he's looking around trying to find a
Sure.
glimmer of hope, and
But
it's
then
just
also,
like he
make
comes
that
back
clear,
like, all right, that's
make
it.
that clear for us. Otherwise, it just seems like he was
Yeah.
It's a
away.
waste. It was a waste.
Yeah.
But I do love this moment. I do love the fact that Theon, like, that's the last little bit of courage Theon needs to,
And he
like,
charges,
charge with the spear and just gets fucked.
Hard
just
miss
the,
there.
just
Hard
a hard
miss.
miss. Snaps the spear in half and just stabs him in the gut with it. Night King, very expressionless, but like kind of like, fuck yeah.
I really
I'm
did
dope.
think that there was going to be a Theon like stab in the leg or calf moment where like Theon's on the ground, but he still has like a dagger and like,
Yeah,
nope.
yeah, yeah.
I thought
Would've
that was
been
going
cool
to
if he
be
had a
something like
second
that.
dagger.
Yeah.
Not the Night King. He's not gonna miss.
He's not killing a fucking Night King.
Right?
Oh no, I mean that like after when he already hits Theon and Theon's on the ground with the thing in his chest.
Oh, okay.
And the Night King's walking away, and at the last moment, like hits him in the leg or the foot.
So I just want to say, like the whole slow musical moment where we get a glimpse at everyone else. It's not good because we've seen these exact same shots earlier. You know, everyone piled and being attacked.
They're basically like,
didn't-
how long can you expect three characters to fight with their back up against the wall against a horde of undead before they should get overtaken? So every time they cut back to that, Kevin's right, it becomes way less impactful because you're like, we've seen Jaime and Brienne just next to each other, screaming, but I'm like, hey, you guys are doing okay. You lasted for the last 4 hours of this fight, so I guess you're gonna be okay.
And Sam as well. And it goes back to what I was saying about the Battle of the Bastards. Like when John's overwhelmed, he's overwhelmed.
He's fucked.
He needed someone to come save them. They didn't. Like my biggest problem with this episode is I feel like it does a disservice to the story we've been following for 8 seasons, because when you look at the battles, when you look at the individual people, I would totally buy it if it was like, it's not about the individuals dying. The death isn't the only stake. I get that argument. It's like, oh, there's armies. They lost the Unsuli. They lost this. That matters. But not when you give me a whole episode of build-up the episode before, telling me that the people matter more than the armies.
Well, and also having them have conversations of we're all gonna die tomorrow.
And then more than that, having it focus on these 4 characters being backed up against a wall as opposed to any other red shirts, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
you're giving me like conflicting information.
Again, man, like would would George R. R. Martin killed a lot more people? Would he have killed a lot more people than D.B. Weiss and Benioff?
I felt like the Red Wedding had higher stakes than this episode did.
100%.
I really do. So we can absolutely discuss, and I'm almost done with my plot recap here. We're at the very end of the episode. So obviously Theon dies, and I think in this moment we're all like, what the fuck is going to happen now? Is there going to be some kind of face-off between Bran and the Night King? Of course, the Night King strolls over. They have this like stare-off, which Bran is very good
I like
at.
how he walks. He walks
Everybody
like
should
sexy.
know you never get
Why
to
are
a
you doing
stare-off
the
with
handsome
Bran.
Squidward right now?
Because that's how he walks. He's like, I got armor on.
He does. But again, this part I think is really cool because you're waiting for Jon to get out of that.
Right.
And by this point, I've forgotten about Arya. I've forgotten about a lot of the other players. I'm waiting for Jon to get there, and he's still stuck behind this wall. And that's where I'm like, what is going to happen?
But
Like,
then he's not stuck behind the
He's
wall.
facing
But
off
then
against the dragon.
and then he's decided, fuck my original mission. I'm gonna go toe to toe with Viserion, and it's like, what the hell happened?
Well, actually,
would you do
that's
that?
not how I read it. I read it. He was pinned down basically, and every time he tried to get out, the dragon just had him there, so he couldn't get to Bran.
Yeah.
and he was hopeless, and just decided, I'm going to stand up and scream at this fucking.
But
dragon.
he was but he was
That's what I'm gonna
through.
do.
He was through the courtyard into the hallway where the whites were falling on him. What you mentioned, and then somehow he circles back around and goes back out to the courtyard.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
None.
I was like, how the heck did you end up back there?
I just got that
like
the
you know where
dragon-
you're going. He grew up in Winterfell.
I just got the dragon. Just every time he tried to get around it, just kept pinning him down and
I don't
bringing
know.
him back.
I thought it was a plot hole
But
that
what
I
she's
just
saying is,
can't
how
accept.
did he get back into that dragon pit?
Yeah.
He
Like,
just
he
kept
knew.
getting
He
the
got
dragon, the
out of
dragon
it.
pit.
I don't even think that's a him navigation thing. I think that's the showrunners just like
Need to keep him away from the action.
Yeah,
He was- I mean,
that's
pinned down.
what it was. That it was trying to make everyone feel like, oh my god, desperation.
or maybe even reusing scenes in hopes that us, the audience, don't know exactly his location, but we think he's getting closer and closer, but he keeps getting stopped. You know?
Maybe. I just think that by season 8, the showrunners know how voracious this audiences, these fans are, and how they dissect like every frame of every episode. So I don't know if I'm with you on that as a choice, but I disagreed with it. But then we get to, this epic scene where, they're having this face off, this like long dramatic stare, and then we see Arya out of nowhere jumping on the back, and for a half second I held my breath because I thought she was going to make it, and then of course the Night King grabs her by the throat
And by the hand. So he grabs the throat and the stabbing hand.
to stop her, and then she smartly drops the Valyrian steel dagger, catches it with her other hand, and stabs him right where
Pulls a
the
Bucky
children
Barnes,
of the first
hell
men.
yeah.
Fucking
so what a
And then
great moment
Yeah.
that was.
Motherfuckers all die.
I
then a
stood
wave.
up and just screamed.
And everybody posted the gif of her training against Brienne, where she pulls that
Does the same move.
same move where she does that and poof poof, and they
So
meet up and they're like,
cool.
oh, you're good at fighting too, like
Yeah.
that sort of cool moment.
Yeah, it was epic. It was amazing. I watched some reaction shots. There was a video going around Twitter where there was a bar and there's this giant projection screen. I can't ever imagine watching this in a
No,
bar.
that's
with that
fake. That's
noise.
fake.
Yeah,
You
that's
talking
like
That's
about-
fake.
That's a meme that goes
that's
around.
right.
that
Damn
people
it! I
use.
thought it was real.
Yeah.
Let me believe.
It originated from a soccer match.
Damn it.
And then
Now you
people
know how it
Best
feels like to be
version.
Let me
whatever.
pretend
green
then.
screen
It
everything
was
in there,
good.
yeah.
But thank you for
The
breaking
DVD
my
icon is the best
So
version of that.
What a great
Anyway, it was a
moment.
great
The
scene.
only thing that I didn't like about this was that we knew it wasn't going to be John because we already saw him pinned down and like screaming at the thing. So I thought that was a bad cut where I would have liked to have not seen John. And I understand why they made this choice because they were like, it has to be utter despair. Like John, there's two different ways you could have gone with it. Obviously, seeing John not go there makes it like, oh shit, this guy's gonna win. But I thought he was gonna somehow come out of nowhere. Glad it was Arya, but I also thought I was like, Plan B would have been great too if he caught her and then fucking Bran did something in the episode and just took out a knife and was like stab.
Yeah.
That was it. But I love that it was Arya. And I'm just gonna say this: if Sansa had died, Arya for head of Winterfell, I would have voted for her. She's got a lot
That's
of
what I was
cachet
hoping
going
for.
into this.
Yeah, I
Woman of
thought
the
I
North.
thought for sure Sansa was going to die, and then Arya would take the place of Lady Stark. So in this moment, of course, the
Who she
entire
is.
army of the dead collapses. Viserion is dead. The Night King dead. All the generals dead. A really triumphant moment that I was really hoping that somebody would cheer
No,
somewhere, but
they
they're
don't
just
give you
so
that.
exhausted and overwhelmed with what has just happened to them. They're all kind of like in disbelief, and I think rightly so. They don't believe that these whites are actually dead. Right, I think that they're like, oh, they're gonna come back. These people are gonna come back, and so there's kind of this anticlimactic moment where we cut back to this, what I thought was the saddest scene in the episode between Danny and Jorah, where she's holding his body, knowing now that he's like in his last breaths, dying, and she's like weeping over him, and then Drogon flies in and like curls around her.
yeah.
That's pretty
It
cool.
was like such a sweet moment.
Yeah.
So sad.
And then it cuts to black, and you're like, are we going to get another scene? And then credits.
No.
No, we do get another scene. We have another scene. The final scene, of course, is Melisandre walking.
Oh, that's right.
Right,
That's
right,
right.
Walking out of the castle, and Davos,
He's about to kill her
fucking
still.
Davos,
Gonna still kill her.
is so bloodthirsty for her that he grabs
it.
his
I get it.
sword
See,
to go
same
to
here.
follow her out as the sun is rising. Because they do this wide shot where we see the battlefield and the sun's just starting to come up. It's like right before dawn.
Yeah.
And she had said, "I'll
Just
be
like
dead
she
before
said.
dawn." And Davos is like, "I'm going to make sure of it." After all she did for the army, not to say that he doesn't deserve to be upset with her for killing Shireen. He absolutely
One little
does.
kid that wasn't going to do anything anyway.
Well, he loved her.
Here we
I mean,
go.
that is kind of a monster thing to say, but I think after
Fucking
everything
rich
that
kid,
they went
spoiled little rich
through,
kid.
it was a
Jesus.
Wow.
Little rich kid.
Oh my God! Let me take your microphone away. I will have 2 microphones now. So she walks out, and I, for a half second, was worried about how this was going to go down, because I think clearly Melisandre didn't anticipate herself making it this far in the battle. So then she grabs the magical stone from her necklace, pulls it off, and as we know that's what's kind of keeping her life force alive, this power of the Lord of Light within this stone. She tosses it aside and then walks out, and then we see her just like shrivel up, and then she collapses and dies into the snow.
She gets like old, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So,
so yeah.
when
She's
we
like
last
400
She's actually
or something.
super old.
when
No,
we
she's
last
like
saw her take it off the
150,
first
I think.
time, right? And it's revealed that she's super old. Why did she take it off?
I think she takes it off to sleep.
So then why would she die?
Why would
Well,
I think
Because
she
it was
wanted
really
to.
cold.
I think it was like, I'm
I
done.
don't know if
she
she
gave
takes
up the will to live?
That's it.
Are we really going to use that excuse?
Yeah, so
Magic,
look
dude.
at it. All
She
great,
served-
listen,
she
all
served her
great
purpose.
heroes go out on a
She did
rock
serve
and
her
give up the will to
purpose,
live to die. That's just how it goes. You got to just sit Indian legged and just die for no reason.
Episode
Crisscross
3, like
episodes.
when they said that, it was
Huh?
nothing.
Sorry.
So-
I apologize, everyone.
That brings us to the end of the episode. That's the final shot. Is
That was
Melisandre collapsing
Getting
into
naked
the snow.
one more time. Just that last time.
So before we
For old
kind of
time's sake.
give our thoughts about the episode as a whole, we of course did the death pool last week. I've tallied up everybody's thoughts, and I of course am in last place because I thought everybody was going to die, because I thought there would be fucking stakes in this episode.
There weren't.
And there weren't.
You're just wrong.
Nobody fucking died. Andy's in 4th place. Kevin is in 3rd place. Nick is in 2nd place,
Damn it.
and with the win, Tim called
Great.
most of the lives in the
Great.
lives in the dice.
But at what cost?
At what cost? At the
Cost
cost.
of a solid 100 and what, hour and 22 minutes. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
the cost
Yeah.
of your
Yeah,
life.
Yeah, I was.
This was the biggest battle ever, the most budget, but like, yeah, at what cost?
I'm
like,
glad
did it
we
need
could
to
see
be?
it all, you know?
Didn't
Yeah.
need to be.
Like, God, it
That
looks so
is
cool.
that is a big issue for me, right? As I'm like, I appreciate that this was an hour and 22 minutes, and like again, just like certain movies that we've seen before, there's more setup sometimes can lead to a more impactful like ending and payoff at the end. I just don't think this had that. I think this could have been an hour-long episode, and it would have probably been as good.
I don't think the time had any like issues or it's like that's not the problem that this episode had. The
Right.
problem, the plot was the problem. The character storylines were the problem. Like the action being too dark was the problem. Like that's
I think we'll see more
Bigger than
deaths
time.
in the final battle. I think they had the sort of Benioff and Weiss sat down together, or like, when do we want these characters to die? Do we want them to die in this battle or the final battle? And I think that's like a discussion that was had.
I'm absolutely with you. I think the problem though is that they set this up through all seasons, all 8 seasons so far, as the Great War, as the one war that only matters. And like to then go, well, just kidding, this isn't the actual war. And I want to be clear, if in case it's not, this is an incredible feat of filmmaking. Regardless of how we feel about the plot and the writing, what they pulled off cinematically was impressive without question.
sure.
But
Could have been better.
I
Go
think
ahead.
that the time that they had, like making it such a long episode, worked against it. Because, great, we saw so many characters almost die so many times.
So many cutaways.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just like, it's not cool.
And it does kind of make episode 2 feel less important.
Absolutely.
And real quick, I want to butt in here with the Patreon responses. You can go to patreon.com/kindafunny to let us know what you think of the episodes. Overwhelmingly, everyone's on the same page with us. We got people saying, like, the most like positive thing I'm seeing here is Sam Mosher saying, I really liked the episode, especially the consistent sense of dread, but I was disappointed in the lack of major deaths. And then he like goes on to have more critiques. Then there's a lot of other people saying, it pains me so much, like Sam saying, it pains me so much to say that I found the Battle of Winterfell disappointing. It seems so anticlimactic to have the White Walker threat that was hyped up from the first episode from the first scene of the first episode be defeated in a single episode. Then Wet Dirt says, the Battle of Winterfell left me feeling very whelmed. I thought the Battle of the Bastards and Hardhome were superior in just about every way possible.
Yep.
Cinematography, choreography, suspense, payoffs, and certainly lighting.
Matt Penza says thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to confirm,
I still really enjoyed the episode, though. I didn't. I think I'm in the minority here. I enjoyed the episode quite a bit.
Oh, I did
I still
too.
have a lot of problems.
I
with
didn't
it.
think it was
enjoyed
bad.
it.
No, I didn't enjoy
I just
it.
didn't think there was a payoff.
I thought it was so much to do so little.
I thought there were really good moments. I just think, unfortunately, those moments were downplayed a little bit by some of the pacing and some of the way they shot it. It's just some of the issues of the episode. But like the payoff at the end with Arya killing the Night King, I'm like, fuck yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
But like
Yeah.
that's the only that's why it happened, so that we could.
But I love that we have
people
that. We have
who
smaller
don't have
moments
a
with
firm
like with the
understanding.
Hound finally kind of are given proof that he does care for her, and she.
We already knew that.
We already knew that. We
was
definitely
already
already
fighting
knew
I
that.
like that moment. I
Yeah.
like that. I like the stuff with the Red Witch. There's a lot of good stuff in this
Grey
episode.
Worm
Yeah.
showing all his fear.
Yeah, it's just there's a
Him
lot of also
humanizing a little bit, I
mad
think, was
stuff.
good.
Albert writes in with a long one here. It says, disappointing. The show continues to favor fan service and hype moments instead of narrative and consistency it has shown in prior seasons. Things like, there was almost no storyline reason for Arya to kill the Night King other than, oh, she's a badass assassin and is a fan favorite. Her whole arc had nothing to do with him. What was the point of Bran? What was the payoff of him being the three-eyed raven? The Jon Snow stuff was already resolved thanks to Sam, and he didn't contribute to the fight or provide knowledge of the White Walker's motives. Dear God, the plot armor. I could have sworn Jaime, Brienne, Grey Worm, Sam, etc. died like 5 times each. The show would show them completely surrounded and overwhelmed, only to cut away and cut back to them completely fine. Sam seemed to kill off more whites lying on the floor than the entire Dothraki army could do, using horses and flaming swords. Jon Snow, the guy whose entire arc is revolved around the White Walkers, did nothing. All the different White Walkers we've seen throughout the show amounted to nothing, since apparently they're all tied to the Night King's mother brain. The battle with Cersei feels more like a mere quibble after defeating a literal army of the dead and saving the human race. And it's like,
Yeah.
my problem with this is the episode was fine. I was entertained by it.
All right, cool alt account, Tim.
But,
It was really well said.
but I expect a lot from this show, especially this. We're in the end game.
But
Like,
see, my thing, and just to disagree a little bit, is that the show's not about battles. Right, the show's about the before and the after of battles. The fact that they gave us this, I almost see as icing on the cake. This could have been like, there are some other battles. Remember, like what was the battle of where Tyrion gets knocked out, and then we just cut to the end of it.
Blackwater.
Yeah, that was great. Right, that I love that because
Blackwater.
this show is not about.
it was the one in the Riverlands, right?
Oh yeah, but yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was where he has to defend it
Lannister.
against Stannis. Whatever.
Also, the Crying Wood one where they capture Jaime. Like we didn't see it at all.
yeah.
But
But that's my point. It's like
Those
this
weren't
episode,
the Great War, though.
But this there's what is we on season 7 now of the show? Season 8 of the show. Out of all 8 of these seasons, it's not about actual action. It's about what happens before and after and the aftermath of that. And so what I'm excited for is the next episode where what the fuck do we do now? We don't have an army anymore, but Cersei does. And what are we gonna? That's where the interest is. I look at this episode more as like, cool. They gave us another cool battle sequence, but to be honest, they've never had the budget to do really compelling battle
But
sequences.
see, I disagree with you entirely because like
Same.
the other shows they had that this guy directed were way superior.
There's
to
one
this.
battle of the
two.
Bastards.
Hardhome and Battle of the Bastards.
What was Hardhome?
Hardhome was the one when
that
they went north when they first fought the zombies.
when they first
Where
fought
they,
the Night
they,
King.
they
First
escape on
get
the boat,
the-
and then we see the rising
The
of
rise?
the.
So good.
That was cool, but that was great because it was a 20-minute scene, not an hour and a half
exactly.
long
Nick, I
thing.
think you're-
That's
Don't
my
make
thing
it
is like,
an hour
fuck
and a
the
half.
battles.
It's
It
fine.
doesn't matter.
Yeah,
They
battles
did
don't matter.
battles better. I am disappointed in the characters and in the story that.
But see, I think that's what we're gonna
in the battle.
But see, obviously, that's what we're gonna get next, right? Is now I'm way more interested in how do they tactically defeat Cersei, who has an entire army, than I was with who's gonna stab this Night King. That was the fucking Night King's lame anyway.
And that's the problem.
He's just lame.
It shouldn't have been lame.
Right.
It should have had a
They've been
payoff.
setting up the Night King since season
Episode
1.
one.
Episode
Right, but that's what I'm saying
Nick.
is now the setup is, oh, we're really fucked because we don't
By
have.
Cersei? You're
Yes.
more fucked by fucking Cersei than the Night King?
because she
That's a
outsmarted them.
mistake. That means they fucked it up, Nick.
Exactly. No, they didn't fuck it up. Tactically,
They being the showrunners.
I understand that, but the whole concept of this whole season is they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. If they beat them, they're still fucked. Then and they're there, and we're gonna see that, and that's what's gonna be great. I'm not saying this episode was great by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, there was for everyone's criticism is completely valid. What I'm saying is when they showed the next on, I was like, oh right, that's what this show's about. It's not about the big battle, how well we do action, because they don't do action that well. We just watch fucking Endgame. They do action well. This show's not about the action. It's about the
I think
characters.
you're missing
They
the
do super
point,
well.
Nick. Yeah.
I
not
want to
about
say
the action.
now it's like, isn't it obvious? Like Arya could just go in there with someone's face, sneak into the King's Landing,
And maybe we'll see
murder her,
that.
and then boom, it's over. Great,
Maybe we'll get
Cersei's
that.
dead. Yeah, but like that would suck. Like I would hate that.
Yeah, but I do think that Arya killing the Night King. I think if it would have been Jon, we would have heard complaints that it was too predictable.
Oh, that would have been an issue too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think I think some of the complaints that we're hearing, like from Albert and from other people, that like, you know, it just we're not
fit
getting the payoff
story-wise.
or whatever. It doesn't fit story wise or whatever. I mean, in the last episode, we did have Arya, you know, really asking about the White Walkers, and that's not a whole lot of build up, but it's still something. But I think the problems with predictability in this episode, people will talk about Jorah and. Like survive, you know.
Jorah dying in her arms was completely ridiculous.
Yeah,
and
exactly. I
completely
mean, it was very predictable, and we
course.
expected that to happen. But if it didn't happen, we'd say like, "Well, what the fuck? What was the whole point of Jorah then? If he didn't die
Right,
saving Dany?"
we
you know,
knew
like,
Brienne was going to save Jaime, and Jaime was going to save Brienne, and that happened both.
Yeah.
You know, again, yeah, I'm
do
saying
think it was a damn if you damn if
I'm
you
more
don't.
interested in the dynamic between what's going to happen next, who's going to actually get the fucking throne, because this is about the throne. It's called Game of Thrones. It's not called Let's Beat the Night King.
Right, but I think my friend Mike Rougeau over at GameSpot summarizes my frustrations perfectly with these questions. Why did any of this matter? To give Arya a cool hero moment so Bran could keep doing absolutely nothing, so Theon could die pointlessly? The litanies of whys, whats, and wheres won't start marching through my mind. What has Melisandre been doing in Volantis since last season? Where was undead Rickon Stark or any other recognizable character when the Stark corpses came alive in the crypts? Why was there so much foreshadowing about the crypts if nobody important was going to die down there? Why does the show refuse to acknowledge ghosts or include the dire wolf in any meaningful way? Why did Jon's revelation to Dany, one of the most important plot lines in the entire series, occur right before the battle if it wasn't going to have any bearing on the events of this episode?
Yeah.
All incredibly valid questions.
It would be like in the MCU if Infinity War ended with someone just like Captain America just punching Thanos in the face and he dies.
How about we don't talk about Endgame spoilers on this episode?
No, it was Infinity War.
Right.
Infinity
But
War.
I wanted to just like cut it off before anything else happened.
Oh yeah, I mean.
Just protecting the people.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying if Infinity War, if after,
Right.
you know, at that
Yeah.
point, 20 movies of buildup of this bad guy that is behind the scenes doing everything, which is Night King, and now he's just gone.
Right.
Which, it's just so disappointing. It was cool. Arya killing him was very cool.
It was a very cool moment. I wrote, fuck yeah, Arya Stark in big bold letters in my notes.
We
'Cause
have
it was
3
it
more
was-
episodes to go for them to present the final conflict and for them to resolve it all with these characters. And we'll see how
it
they
goes.
stick
so
the
we're
landing.
rooting for deaths now.
Well, it's not even that. We're rooting for a good story. Like,
Yeah.
make a good fucking story. I don't care
Yeah.
if no one dies from
Me
now
too.
on. Just make it fucking cool.
Make it have meaning, right?
yeah.
If somebody's going to live, make them living like mean something, right?
And stop the cutaways. Like enough.
Well, I feel like you guys are
Too
judging.
many
I mean,
cutaways.
granted, yes, we are reviewing this specific episode, but the other 2 episodes before that came right before this, we all glowingly loved.
Yes, but now
and I
they're
think
weaker.
we're all going to. I don't think they're weaker at all. I think you've
okay.
I think you've done what they needed to do, which was they took their main characters that you give a shit about and you put them in a very, very, very difficult predicament. And that's what we all, I'm going to spoil it for you guys. When characters are winning and everything's great, shows are fucking boring. So now their backs are literally up against the wall, and it's going to be fucking fascinating to see what they do and how they try to win this.
I don't disagree with you.
They got 1.5 dragons. We don't know if the other one's still in play.
I think that the thing though is that what you just said is impactful because after they fought what's supposed to be the greatest fight to end all fights, and they somehow managed to survive, the good guys win, which I think we can agree is like, hooray, they didn't all die. Is that now it's like, oh, you're going to try to tell me that this fight for the fucking Iron Throne was Cersei means something?
Cersei and Euron.
Right? Like, how is that supposed to mean
Cersei
something
and
compared
Euron.
to what they just overcame? I just like, it's gonna be difficult. I'm very curious now what's gonna happen in the next episode because I think
Elephants.
the next episode
getting
could
elephants
make
at
or
some
break
point.
what happens in this final season. I mean, I trust the showrunners to not fuck up the final ending of the show, but I was just like let down by what happened in this episode.
This episode was a sign to me that I don't necessarily trust that they're gonna do this. Like I trusted them with season 7 of like all the changes they made and like the choices they made. I'm like, cool, you're building towards something, and now I'm like, I don't know that I like what you're building towards.
I really believe that the next series that they announced that is 8,000 years in the past, like I really feel like the big sell is going to be like, hey, we're going to tell you about like what the Night King is and like where that all came from. And I feel like the reason why we didn't get that here is to build that up there. So
Next episode is an hour and 18 minutes, so 4 minutes less than this one. And then the final couple, we got 120 and then 120 as well. So we'll see. We'll see how they do it. Until next time.
Bye, guys.